All right, welcome to another DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, and today's special guest is Andy Wang. He is the race director over at Fort Worth Marathon. Andy, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today, Chris?
I've seen you a lot in the running community. I've run into you at different races. You and I have never really, we might have said hello, but I don't think we've really had a great discussion. So here we are today.
Yeah, first time for everything. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons I started the pod. There's a few, but one of them is that I want to get to know runners that I see in different areas, Fort Worth or anywhere in Dallas, but also I just want to get to know you. You live closer to Fort Worth. I live in Dallas, so we'll never probably run together that much.
A lot of events in the Metroplex. Yeah, paths cross, and I'm willing to travel to pretty much anywhere to do a run, especially
Yeah.
like a race or an event like that. So yeah, for sure.
Cool. Get to know you a little bit. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your kind of running journey. How'd you start running? When did you start running and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I would say first off, I never ran like in high school. I never ran competitively, ran like a little bit in college just as a recreational
Yeah.
runner. So it really,
Class.
yeah, exactly. So it really wasn't until around 2007, and this is after I'd been married and had a couple kids and all that. And I started, hey, I really need to get in better physical shape. And so some of my friends were doing team and training with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And they were
Oh,
training for, I believe they were training for a half Ironman triathlon.
yeah.
And so I just joined them and did a little bit of swimming, biking, and running with them. Didn't know what the heck I was doing, but did enjoy it. And it
Yeah.
felt good to start to get some of that endorphins and all the good stuff that come from physical activity. And so, yeah, it's quite interesting. A lot of people, they start either cycling or running, and then they come and go to a triathlon. But for me, I actually started with triathlon.
It's pretty
Um,
bold.
yeah. Why torture yourself with one sport when you could be mediocre in all three sports?
But it's just like we talk about all the time is, you know, a lot of times it starts with the community, the people around you that are doing something that inspires you to, oh, okay, I'm going to do that too. So that's what it
Exactly.
sounds like happened.
Yeah.
Did you start doing more triathlons or did you
Yeah,
just
no, I
say,
actually
well,
did quite a few triathlons. So like I said, in the beginning, it was just my friends doing it. And then the next season, like the next like spring season, I actually joined team and training myself, and I did a half
huh,
Ironman down in Austin. I think at the time it wasn't officially an Ironman event yet, but eventually did get bought out by Ironman. But it was called I believe it's called the Lone Star Triathlon or something like that at the time. So this is probably, yeah, I believe 2008 is when I ran
a year
that.
later?
Yep. But along the way I started running. So I did my first half marathon, I think in 2007, I had actually done the half marathon. I believe I did
Yeah.
the Dallas Running Club half. And I think I still have that
DRC
shirt.
half.
I think I still have the DRC half t-shirt
Yeah.
somewhere. And I did try to train for a full marathon, got myself some injuries here and there. I think I did kind of injuries that probably almost every runner gets at some point. I had a IT band stress fracture at some point, but eventually
If you're
figured it
doing
all
too
out.
much, were you doing
Yeah, I
too
think it
much,
was
you
just
think?
too
Or,
much
yeah.
too fast, maybe bad form, a bad running form, and that we can talk a little bit more about that later because like now, I don't know, but today was officially day 975 of my running streak since 2000 and basically since COVID. So since 2021, the last 4 years, I've averaged 10 miles a day of running. So that's just
10
not that I have
miles a day?
10 miles a day is my average. So I've gone over 3,650 miles for each of the last 4 years in
And
running. So
without getting injured or?
without getting, yeah, honestly, like I did have one injury. So I had a run streak of probably close to 900 days, maybe 800 and some days. And then I did somehow tweak my hamstrings. And so
Yeah.
I fell right away, and I just took I was like, okay, because like some people would just try to still run through that. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't even really want to run the 1 mile or whatever the minimum is to say I'm still. So I just said, nope, I'm done for now. And miraculously, like I felt better after about a week. I did a week of like
Okay.
only cross training and walking. I could walk fine, but I just couldn't run. And I just started right back up. So now I'm back at day 975.
What kind of, you're at 975 at 10 miles a day. So
Yeah.
that's different.
Yeah,
Because most
yeah.
people
And it's
find,
I work, I guess, unofficially with a whole bunch of different coaches. So I know like this, I don't say the 10-mile a day as an optimal training strategy or
yeah,
anything like that. In fact, don't watch me. Like I actually try to downplay stuff like on Strava or whatever. I don't like people like trying to emulate like what I'm doing. What I'm doing is like really more for just the way I like to run my lifestyle. It's not necessarily in any shape or form the best way to train if you're trying to like PR your marathon or anything like that.
it's interesting. I think getting to know why you're doing this, is
Yeah.
there some specific reason? This is the second time you've done this.
Yeah. I
But
think I just really started like enjoying the running aspect of just being out there every day. Like I actually like at this point now, I get a lot more satisfaction of just seeing other people and helping
yeah,
other people with their running journey and being just overall part of the event, whether it's volunteering or I probably pace close to about 50 races a year.
okay. Yeah, that's fun. I do
So
that too.
like, I just get a lot of satisfaction out of being a part of these events. And yeah, from that perspective, I have probably different goals than other people at this
Do
point.
you have marathon goals like times or anything like that? Or is it something?
Yeah, I feel fortunately, and maybe I'm giving up too easily. I feel like my fastest times are past me. I'm turning 55 this year, so
Okay.
it's definitely gotten a little bit harder in the last couple of years to do the faster paces. I still would like to be able to BQ, Boston Qualify. And this year I'm running two of the Abbott World Marathon Majors. I'll be doing the Tokyo Marathon here in a little over a month. And
Nice.
then I have an entry for New York this fall. So
Have you
between
done
the,
any of those before?
yeah, so after assuming I finish both of those, I'll actually have 5 of the 6 stars. I know it looks like they have a 7-star now with
That's
Sydney,
right.
and it looks like
Yeah.
they're probably moving to 9 total. But anyway, so I'm
Where
5
are the
out of
next
the
two?
original 6 with, I believe it's Cape Town.
Okay. Yeah.
And gosh, the last one escapes my mind. I want to say something like Singapore or something like that.
Singapore.
But
How far can they get out? Are they trying to
yeah,
hit all the continents?
yeah, I
Yeah.
know. Those are definitely far trips and stuff like that.
Australia, Singapore, and it's crazy. So you got to do two this year. That's pretty awesome. You said you've done Tokyo before, no?
No, I haven't. This will be the first
Okay.
time doing Tokyo. And also would be the first time doing New York City in the
How'd you
fall.
get into Tokyo? What'd you do?
I got in the lottery. Yeah, I applied for
Really?
the lottery and got into it. And then for New York, I got in a different lottery. They actually have a virtual run, a virtual
Yeah.
marathon. But like now it's a lottery to get into the virtual. So I just applied for the virtual marathon, got the entry, ran the 26.2 miles during the window. I think there's like a
Yeah.
1 week window you have to do it. And then, so then I will have guaranteed entry for this November's actual New York City Marathon in person.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
So you get those two coming up. And look, as of recent, you became the race director at Fort Worth Marathon. How did that happen?
Yeah. So I've
I've
been
read that a couple
working
times.
so I actually been working with the Fort Worth Marathon for, oh gosh, I want to say too soon after I started my running journey. So like I say something like maybe 2010 or 2011 or something like that. I started working. So this year was the 18th year or I'm sorry, 2024 was the 18th year for the marathon. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I joined probably after it started for maybe 4 or 5 years, and I just volunteered. I was helping with like race registration setup, and then would do stuff like help answer emails and put
Sure.
together race guides and different documentation and stuff like that. And then I would say I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, the original race director, his name's Steve Looney, and he was wanted to just do something different with his time. So he ended up selling the race to Cox Running Club, which is a local running club here in Fort Worth. So they took over the management. Steve stayed on as the executive race director for at least the first 3 years. And I guess even last year, I think he was helping out. I don't know if officially he had the title or not. Like we were looking for ways to grow the race, and I was still helping out with volunteering. And it's just, hey, I would like to step up and maybe be a bigger part and just take on a bigger role. So
Yeah.
that's what I did in say May of last year.
Okay.
April or May is when I started. So had 6 months to really get up to speed. I knew some
Yeah.
things already, and I helped other race directors before, but it was
Is that still the
Yeah, they're
to
still
okay.
the main owner, but I'm helping out with the executive race side of it, trying to work with
Yeah.
the marketing and looking at other ideas for how we can improve the race experience and just bring in the like I run a lot of marathons, so I try to put my experience and things that I've seen from other races or personal experiences into fully evolving the event and improving.
Yeah, look, it's a great race. It's been around for a long time, and why not keep it going? And look, there's a lot of competition, right? How do you stand out a little? And I think
Yeah.
that's important.
Well, and I think there's always a balance between saying, oh, like we have competition, but I do feel like we have so many runners in DFW and then even outside of our immediate metro area that are interested in doing longer events or bigger events. I think that it's not necessarily a zero sum game. We're trying to grow the sport. We're trying to do
Yeah.
that. And we do as much as we can. We try not to conflict with a lot of other running clubs in their events. So we've worked with the Grapevine Running Club. We looked at like other races. Like I have many friends that work at the Run Project team. So we try to make sure that as much as we can that we don't conflict
That makes
with
sense.
races and things like that.
Did you learn a bunch for the last 6 months?
Yeah, there's always room for improvement and like it's like any other big project, a little bit of Murphy's Law and trying to
Uh-huh.
mitigate what might what might go wrong. And so yeah, so there's a lot of experiences come from there. And then but I can fully accept that there's always room for improvement and always being able to listen to concerns from participants or just even just general ideas of how, hey, this would be something that would make it really interesting or make it more enjoyable. So yeah, I've learned a lot and still have much to learn.
I'm sure. And so when you look at kind of your first one in the books and everything else, any kind of learnings that you want to think about doing differently this next year? Or is there going to be any major change or thinking anything like that around that race?
I think
Expansion
that
maybe
like,
down the road? I don't
yeah,
know.
there's definitely, I think, areas that we can improve. Some things that were like maybe not as much in our control, like on race day, but like ways to mitigate around things like we had somebody steal some of our signs race morning or the night before. I don't know exactly when it happened, but that was obviously disappointing. And then we had an issue with some of the porta potties. I don't know if they delivered to the wrong spot or they're just running late. There's like always
You're
just little
always going to have
things.
problems with that stuff.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I think
little
with
things.
there, like maybe looking at ways to mitigate those things. So for example, with the signs, maybe doing some sort of like other additional markings that being able to get more volunteers for course monitors, some for critical junctures. And then with the porta potties, maybe that part I do have some of the stuff that we farm out the logistics to sub teams, but working with them and saying, hey, maybe it makes sense to have maybe more than one vendor. That way, in case one is just not there, at least you have half of the supplies available. So these are some of the things that we're toying around, but we definitely hear like concerns. The other thing was just timing of the race. When you do an event like a marathon, some of the participants can take quite a while before they finish. And the goal is to make sure that the finish line experience is going to be as good for people that finish, as far as for the fastest finishers versus the people that finish a little bit slower or a little bit later in the day, to make sure that we still have the same amount of energy. So we're
Like that.
ideas for early start options, and then also really holding our partners and other vendors, et cetera, to make sure that we still have a positive
They
finish line
stay there.
experience for, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense because 5 or 6, what's the cutoff? Like 6 hours or something? Or
6.5 hours officially
okay,
from again start of 7:30. I believe the finishing time or the finish line closes at 2 p.m. So it's 6.5. But and yeah, we want to support everybody. So we're
of
looking
course.
at ways that people could start 60 or 90 minutes earlier, so they'll still finish like around the same time as say somebody who's doing a 4.5 hour marathon, and they can still feel that finish line energy. And then worst case is like just making sure that we still have enough of the post-race amenities for everybody.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That you guys have half marathon. Marathon is it 20 mile? Is that right? Or
Yeah,
is
half
that
marathon, 20 miler, and a two-person relay.
okay? I guess I didn't know about the 2 person. What is the distance on that?
So that one, what we did last year was there was an exchange point at one of the water stops. We didn't have very many teams. I think we only had 3 or 4 teams
Mhm.
for the
Okay.
relay. So it's
Was that
something
net?
that we're still looking into right now for whether we keep it. But I think it was somewhere around the mile 14 mark, I think. So
Okay.
there's a 14-mile leg and a 12.2-mile leg or something like that.
Okay, got it. Well, sounds fun, but sounds like you didn't have a lot of people sign up for it. So
Yeah, it
I
was,
agree to keep doing it.
yeah, because, well, so what happened was the race used to have a 2-lap course that was all on the
Mhm.
Trinity Trail. And I'm not saying that there was probably a ton of relay participants even in past years, but it made sense that, okay, somebody runs the first lap and then they come in and then the next person
Yeah.
grabs the baton or whatever, and then runs the second lap. But with the new course, since we actually, the first like 11 plus miles are not part of the Trinity Trail, except for maybe getting out to the road initially. But a lot of the trail now is on Overton Park
Okay.
Boulevard and other parts of some residential streets, Colonial Golf Course area, that sort of thing. So with the course change, they weren't going to be back at the start line. So we had the exchange point at, it was actually a pretty big water stop and in a nice area too, off of the Clear Fork Trailhead. But that was where the exchange point was for the relay now.
So not to compare, but as you look at expansion down the road, let's say it's maybe it's not expansion, but adding like a 5 and 10K for
Yeah,
even more runners.
we did have a 5K last year, and
Yeah.
so our big change for this year is that we turned our event into a 2-day event. So we're going to have a 5K and a 10K
Okay.
on Saturday. So the race
Yeah.
this year is going to be November 8th and 9th. So on Saturday the 8th, we'll have 5K and 10K, and then the longer distances will be on Sunday. And that'll be great because we have more. We didn't really have too much an issue from a route and trail like number of runners on the trail impact
Yeah.
because we had different start times and the K route was so much shorter than the longer distances. But this coming year, we'll have more flexibility with respect to parking, with respect to making sure that we have like all of the post-race amenities and that sort of thing.
Do you guys have like many events throughout the year to build up to that particular race or?
So even though like now I'm only officially the race director for the Fort Worth Marathon, and actually another race that I'll be the race director for is the Hell's Half Acre Marathon and Half Marathon. That's coming up in July. So
Oh,
that's my other race I'm trying to, that's not going to be quite as crazy as the Fort Worth Marathon because of the nature of that race. So that race,
yeah.
we can like just switch gears temporarily. That
Yeah.
race
Yeah.
started, gosh, I think that race is also probably about 17 or 18 years total, although it's only been called
Where is
Hell's.
this race again?
So it's in Fort Worth at
Okay.
Trinity Park. So what happened
Okay.
was this race, there was a race that started, gosh, I think also about 17 years ago. It was called El Scorcho.
Yeah. I know it
And
well. Yeah.
okay, so yeah, so El Scorcho started because, and hopefully I don't screw the story up, but I believe one guy had a major birthday and everybody just decided that they were going to run a 50K, 31 miles in the middle of the night. And so they mapped out a 5K loop in Trinity Park and they all ran it
Keep
10
doing it.
times. And anyway, so like it just started growing into an actual event. And I think it went for 9 or 10 years.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, like we just don't want to do it anymore. And I think some of the race directors like moved away from the area and that sort of thing. It went for a while, but so we're like, hey, this is like a cool event. Like, why don't we do
Yeah.
it? So Cox Running Club actually came up and tried to do a similar event called Hell's Half Acre. We didn't want to take the El Scorcho name just in case they ever wanted to restart the race and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But it was the same general time frame. But it had a night start, which is the big thing. Like the original El
Yeah.
Scorcho started at midnight. At some point, they started moving it to 11 or 10 p.m. So we did in the Cox Running Club, we did something similar where we'd have 10 p.m. for the longer distances. And I think I can't remember the exact rationale for it, but I guess to make it more of a classic distance, it was changed from a 25K and 50K to a half marathon and a full
Uh-huh.
marathon, a little bit shorter. And then we added a 5K and also I believe a 10K, but those were like more earlier in the evening. So I think like around 7 to 7:30 p.m. start. And they had 10 p.m.
Really
for
hot
the,
day.
yeah, that's warmer, but then those are the shorter distances. The
Yeah.
really cool thing
I agree.
about Hell's Half Acre and El Scorcho prior to it is that it's the only race where as you keep running more and more miles or laps or whatever, it actually starts getting cooler. So right
Yeah,
around
sort
midnight,
of.
you can start because the sun's gone down for a while. You can actually
Yeah.
feel a little bit of breeze. That's the one redeeming
I did
factor.
El Scorcho, one of the races there. My wife, she did her first 50K at El
Oh, wow.
Scorcho.
That's a
Yeah.
good one.
So
I think I
it's
did the
funny because,
50K twice
yeah,
and the 25K
I did it.
many times.
Okay. And I was just so tired afterwards.
Yeah, we always called it the El Scorcho hangover because the
Yeah.
next day you were so like jet lagged.
Yeah, man. Because you go on a run, you go home, maybe you sleep for a few hours, and then you're just like, oh, man. And so
I
for
think
the
the
rest of the
crazy
day, you're
thing
just
was
screwed.
like there was a couple years where I think Too Hot to Handle was
Yeah.
Sunday morning. And so people would basically like not some really crazy people. I don't think I never did it myself, but some really crazy people would go and then they would run it and then literally just go to do Too Hot to Handle. I think I did something crazy like during
That
Ironman
is
training.
ridiculous.
Yeah, I think I did. I think one day I did a 70 bike ride in the morning
Yeah.
and then I swam 4 or 5,000 meters like in the pool Saturday afternoon, and then I ran a 25K at El Scorcho, and this was before Ironman. So I was like, okay, that's like close to Ironman distance.
Yeah.
It's all within less than 24 hours.
At least
Isn't
you
too
get
bad.
your running in too,
Yeah, exactly.
at night. Look, so this will be your first then to do that particular race.
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
That race that you will be doing in July. What's it called again?
Yeah,
Hell's
so Hell's Half Acre is I
Acre.
guess the equivalent race. So that's race been I believe it's the 7th or 8th year now. There's been Hell's Half Acre, and actually for a while we moved it to the Woodshed Smokehouse, but we got feedback that there it's more of like on the concrete trail, and
Yeah.
it's, hey, let's move it back to Trinity Park, try to get closer to the original vibe. So now it is on Trinity Park. It's mostly on the dirt gravel trail there, so it's a little bit more of a trail run, so to speak. And it's still just just, hey, let's just do this vibe. It's not a PR event by any
Yeah. Of
time of
course.
year, late night conditions or anything. It's more of, hey, like I just want to challenge myself and I want a fun
Yeah, it's kind of a
atmosphere.
fun, different
Exactly.
atmosphere, different thing to
Yeah.
do. So you're going to be the race director of this
I'm
next
going
year
to
or
help out
this
with
year
the
for
race
it.
director.
Okay.
Same thing. I'll do the executive race director duties, like help select medals, shirts, and look at the general thing. Race logistics wise, we have a team that helps with making sure water stops are manned, timing is done, that sort of thing. And I think the big thing is just trying to get like that event. I think it's for a few years, and maybe it's because of the change in venue or the concrete it had not as many participants for the longer distances. Obviously
Yeah.
the 5K and the 10K were new, so that was growing. But last year we had a lot of good feedback with the move back to Trinity Park. And so we're looking to grow that. The main thing is we are limited by the permit. So we can only have up to, I believe, 500 participants for the long distances because it's at night.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
but we want to make sure that everybody who wants to do it is aware of the event and get them all registered and then just the best experience possible for the race.
Is that something you think this year you could sell out, or would that be a longer term thing? It's 500.
Yeah,
See,
I think it will sell out this year.
yeah.
Got close. I wouldn't say super close to sell out last year, but we definitely bumped up the numbers a lot over the last few years where it was in a different venue. So I think like the change in venue helped a lot. And like now we're just, we want to really make sure that we get the word out and let people know, hey, we're moving back to, again, we don't want to steal the El Scorcho name or anything like that, but
Yeah.
let people know that, hey, we're back to that original kind of like trail running, almost trail running vibe. And just, it's a great event for the challenge and for the camaraderie. And hopefully for the bling, like we have some cool ideas for the medal and
Yeah.
things like that.
There's a pretty big trail running community here in Dallas Fort Worth, right? I mean,
Exactly.
so there's 2 or 3 really good groups that come to mind. I think and then some people just want to try a trail. And there's not a lot of, look, I know Ann and Chris do blaze trails that is somewhat close to the DFW area, but nothing right there in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
And I think like it's so personally, like I really like being on the trails,
Yeah.
but for
Yeah.
to run trails well. So this is the type of trail where it's not so technical. It's more of dirt and gravel as opposed to something where there might be roots or very unstable surfaces and that sort of thing. And I get it. Like I totally understand like why people who do trail running like that type of environment. So
I love it.
I'd like to support that as much as possible.
Yeah. Look, I think there's something for everyone. And
Exactly.
I love doing the crazy trails, the rock trails, road.
Yeah.
Lately, I've been doing more road than the trails, but my wife and I will do both.
That's good.
I think it's just, it breaks up the monotony of, hey, I've been doing all these races,
Right.
half marathons, whatever. Then we go to Europe and go to like to France or and go to the Swiss Alps and go do a 5-day trip in the mountains, trails, do running. So you got to break it up. Like I'm always for doing something a little bit different. What you're doing is, look, it's not completely different. It's at night, it's trail like, it's like El Scorcho. So people like that stuff. I think it's a cool experience.
And that's the vibe that we're trying to get. And we're still, because it's a lap course, it's very easy to have. Obviously, we have water stops and support from that perspective, but it's great. Like literally, a lot of people just set up a little campsite. So if there's like some special drink or nutrition item that they want, it's never more than 3 miles away from you.
Exactly. That's the type of race it is. And I think people respect it and will like it. So I wish you nothing but luck on that. So
Thanks.
I didn't know that you did those too. So that was interesting. I thought we were just going to talk about the Fort Worth Marathon. So that's cool.
Yeah. So going back to your question, which was like, do you have events leading up to the Fort Marathon? So those are the two events that I'll be race directing. And I guess the third small event that I have that I've done the last couple of years is the Pi Day 5K. So we just do that on March 14th. This is just a small 5K for the area, but get people out. It's an after work run. So 7 p.m. start, and we have pizza and just have fun on the training trail. But I was going to say, we work very closely with the rest of the Cox Running Club events. So they have a calendar that pretty much does one race every 4 to 6 weeks throughout the year. So some of their events coming up, there's the Panther City Half Marathon. That's going to be in early April. They always have a great turnout for their Mother's Day Half Marathon and 5K, obviously in May. And then their big thing is the Trinity 5000 Summer Series, which is actually in its 40th year this year. And that's a 5K every Thursday night with a small caveat, which I'll go into here in a little bit. But every Thursday night is a 5K race. You can sign up for the whole series 12 weeks in a row from early June through late August. This year, we're just doing something a little bit different where the first race, instead of being on a Thursday, it's actually going to be on National Running Day, which is a Wednesday. So just for week one this year, we're going to have kickoff the 40th year of the race series. And it's just it's tough running in the summer. I'm definitely a cold weather runner myself, but there is just something about 5K is not so bad. And the competition is just great because like you have the same, regardless of what level you're at, there's going to be somebody who's around the same pace that you're. So if you're interested in just pushing yourself and seeing how you're progressing throughout week to week, there's always like the same people that are right around your pace. And that's exactly like who I got to keep up with or get ahead of if I want to accomplish goals.
I think 5Ks are awesome, but sometimes I feel like they're super hard. I feel like I can get in the groove in a half marathon. I'm not saying half marathons, I can get in the groove, but 5K feels like a sprint the entire time.
Yeah. I think every distance can challenge you in different ways.
Of course.
A few years ago, one of my running friends was trying to do really well in the mile.
Yeah.
And I think even during COVID, there was like some group on the internet where I think it was the McCurdy trained group. And so they just had this virtual 1 mile race series. And so I was like, this is something I've never raced a mile before.
Yeah.
And so they had 4 1 mile things. I think it was like 1 week, then like maybe you skipped a week and then another week and then 2 more. So over the span of 8 or 9 weeks, you ran the mile 4 times awesome. And you just tried to beat everything. And this was during COVID. So like it was all virtual. You had to set up your own races. So I think you could do it on a track if you wanted to, and you had to run this. I'm not sure. I think they may have said, don't do it on track because it was COVID. They didn't want people congregating.
Yeah.
So they basically said, run your own, like whatever course you wanted, you can map it out And the only stipulation was that it had to be less than 1% drop for the entire mile. So you could have up to 52 feet of decline in 1 mile.
Okay. So you could go up if you wanted, but you
You
can't
could go
go
up
that
if you
much.
wanted to. The whole point was to try to go as fast
Yeah.
as you can. So I think I found a course in my neighborhood where it's just some crazy course that followed, whatever roads. And I was like looping one neighborhood at the end. But I think I got down to, I don't know, like I want to say I got down to like maybe a 5:39 mile or something
That's
like that,
pretty
which is,
awesome.
yeah, great. Downhill course. But
I'm
then, like I
so
said, a friend of mine told me about this mile that race that's in St. Louis. It's called the Macklin Mile. And I guess they've been doing
Yeah.
it for years. And so there's this road in St. Louis, I think it's called like Macklin Street or Macklin Drive or
Mhm.
something like that. And it's the same thing. It's like mostly downhill. I don't remember the exact drop, but so actually a couple friends of mine, we actually all drove to St. Louis just to
Just
run
to run
one
the mile.
mile. And we did that. And I think I ran, and I think that one was, I don't think I quite, my goal was to break 5:30, but I think I
Yeah.
ran 5:32 or something like that. I didn't
That's
quite
pretty
make
impressive.
it.
I tell you what, the downhills help because my PR in the half marathon, probably a little over a year ago,
Okay.
was at a gravel race in
Yeah.
Utah.
Which one?
And it's called, I forget when it's in Utah. So it's only one in Utah. I forget
Big
what it's
Cottonwood?
called. Yeah, I think so. And it's about 2,900 feet of down.
Okay.
And I ran like a 128. And
Yeah.
I don't remember ever running that many miles that fast, especially in the middle. Like I was hitting 6:15, 6:13, 6:14, 6:20, 6. I was like, geez, man, like I feel like I'm fairly fast, but I'm not that fast in
I think
general.
we're probably around the same speed,
Yeah.
probably. I don't know. We'll trade PRs and whatever, whatnot. But so I'll tell you my Rebel story. So
Yeah.
I ran in 2023.
Yeah.
I ran Mount Charleston, which is just outside of Las Vegas. And
I've
same
heard
thing,
about that.
it's a Rebel race, and I ran the half marathon. So for reference, in late February of 2023, I ran the Cowtown half marathon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is like not net. Obviously, like the start and finish are very close to each other. So it's pretty much a zero net elevation, but with some
But
hills
there's
in
a
there.
bunch of hills.
And I think I ran I want to say I ran a 134
Yeah.
there. So I was pretty happy with that. That's
my
quite,
best. It count as 133, 134.
yeah, I
is
think
probably
I
my best.
may have run a 132 at the Arlington half marathon, maybe in a year or two before that, but it's whatever. 132, 132, what so 134 was pretty darn close to my PR.
Yeah.
I went to Mount Charleston, whatever, 5 weeks later, and I ran a 126, which
Yeah.
is obviously
That's
my
great.
half marathon PR. Like how Strava tells you, like, hey, these are your best efforts, whatever. So it's Mount Charleston half marathon. It's my half marathon PR, my 20K PR, my 10-mile PR,
10K,
my 15K PR.
5K.
Yes, my 10 and 5. It's my 5K PR. My 5K PR was during the Mount Charleston.
Mine too. Like I was shocked because I hit 1920 or I don't know, whatever, like twice for 5K. And the previous best 5K was 1941. But even then I hit more like low 20s. And then my 10K I've always wanted to hit under a 40, but I've never got even close. But I hit a 40-minute K. And I was like, geez, like these are my best times going down the mountain, like for running a half marathon.
In the middle of the half marathon.
Yeah. I love it. I can't wait. I was going to go do the one in New Hampshire this year, but it's a little too much travel. But still, I love those races. There's one in California that's 3,900 feet of downhill that they have. I'm like, that's right. That's right. I thought about that one. It was like,
okay. So then I've done the Mount Charleston full.
Okay.
But I've never raced it. So one time I ran most of the mountain as a training run.
Yeah.
Just like a couple friends and I just say, hey, like we're going to do, this is before so I ended up switching to the Mount Charleston half marathon. But before that I had originally signed up for the full. So that we actually there was like a weekend with cheap flights or whatever. So we all flew out to Vegas and ran it and just did it as a training run. I think we broke it up into several runs. Like there was like one or maybe two runs. We did maybe the first 20 miles and then like we were done. So it was like 20 miles is enough. And then the next day we went back and we ran like the last 6 miles just to experience it.
But I'll tell you this is as a So it's funny because when I went to that race, there were several people from the DRC group that decided to do the marathon, and they
Okay.
thought for sure these are pretty fast guys, and they thought for sure they're going to get a PR because
Right.
it was like 4,000 feet of downhill, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, guys, you're about to run a marathon down the mountain. How much training have you done? Oh, we did some downhills and things. I was like, look, there's difference between a half marathon and a full, and doing this downhill full is just going to kill you. I go, I'm
Right.
not trying to tell you anything that try to break your heart here or be negative, but so when they were done, none of them hit their goals
Okay.
because they just didn't train well enough, and they found
Yeah.
out
There's a lot of pounding. I would say that
it's
when I
tough.
did that PR half marathon, and I probably run at least I've lost count, but somewhere around 40 to 45 full marathon or longer distances,
Yeah,
either races or other events that were close to. I've done some virtual marathon, that sort of thing.
sure.
But I would say that after that half marathon,
Yeah,
I was more sore than any of like probably my last
that's
5
right.
or 10 full marathons, just because of
You
so
should have
much
saw them
pounding.
walking, dude. It was
Yeah.
like even me, like I've done it before downhill, but they hurt the worst because the next day, 2, 3 days, it's gonna kick your butt, right? But those guys that did the marathon, they were just like barely walking. And whenever you go into the Utah airport, it's really long. You didn't go to Utah, but it's the airport is just super long to get to your
Yeah.
gate and everything. So you're there sitting on those suitcases and walking.
Oh my gosh, that would be just torturous, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the downhills are fun, but I don't know. I would never do a downhill like that for a marathon. I
Yeah.
just wouldn't. It's
So
just
then
too much.
2023 I ran the half, and then 2024 I went back and I paced the full. I
Yeah,
think I was I think it was a 340 pacer. And I want to say that pacing actually didn't feel that much easier than I think if I would have like kind of semi raced it. Like I wouldn't say I was
yeah,
going all out, but I was
yeah.
saying like you actually have to hold back a little bit, like
You
going
do a
downhill. So it's
lot.
like it actually hurt more. And then if I would have just run this in 325 or something like that, basically I'm on my feet 15 minutes longer than I need to be.
Exactly. Did you pace it? Did they ask you to pace it, or you just paced up front?
I volunteered.
Okay.
So they use a group called Beast Pacing. So I've paced with Beast for the last, I don't know, probably 4 years or so. So I've done various, like they pace the hot chocolate
Uh-huh.
race in Dallas. So I paced that like maybe 3 times with them. They pace like a lot of like small half
Yeah.
marathons in the Fort Worth. I usually do the Fort Worth or Irving ones.
Yeah, but I paced the Dallas and sometimes the DRC half. And
Yeah, I was gonna run with you, but then I was like, no, I don't think I can run that fast this year.
the 150. Yeah.
Yeah, because I did the ultra. I'd never done the ultra at
Okay.
Dallas. So
Yeah.
my plan was to actually I was going to run with the 4 hour marathon group because a friend of mine
Yeah.
was pacing that, but I ran with her for the first 5 miles. And then I was like, oh, I don't think this is happening today. So instead of,
It
they were
was a
running
rough
like a
day.
9:05 pace or whatever. So
Yeah.
I ran I was like, no, I think I'm going to run like 9:30 or something.
Look,
And so
I generally can run a 150 pretty easily, but that day it was
it was
difficult,
humid, right?
especially,
It was kind of
yes, hot
hot.
and very humid. And
Yeah.
I love the race.
Yes.
Dallas has done such a good job over the last several years to making that really a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, that's an amazing race. That's what I'm saying. Like people are always like, you should go way back to this cup. No, I will run all the races. I'll run
Yeah.
Cowtown. I will run, I'll
Yeah.
run all the Run Project races. Like whatever is out there. I like the whole atmosphere and energy
Yeah.
from the running community. That's really
Well,
why.
Andy, this has been such a great discussion. It's like we were just running together, hanging out, and that's really, in my opinion, what it's about. Is there something that I should have asked you that I just missed?
No, I don't think so. I hope I can see everybody and meet everybody out there. I'm on Strava. If anybody wants to follow me, Andy Wang, and you can
Yeah,
look at all my crazy antics. How about I ask you, what's the craziest or most memorable run that you've done in the last few years?
there's a few. I'll say that one is when I PR'd the half marathon to down the mountain. I went with a friend from Boston, and so I used to work with him. Now we have a podcast together around data, but it was fun to get him out there running the half marathon with me. And so having that experience with getting the PR, but also seeing him get done with doing a lot better in the half marathon was a lot of fun. And that was a little over a year ago. I think that was 2023, 22. I don't remember. And then my wife and I ran in the Alps this last summer, back in September. It's called Running the Alps. So we went to France, ran in the Alps there, and then went to Switzerland, ran in the Alps there. I got to see a friend there for a day, half a day anyways, and hung out with him for a little bit. But just running in the mountains, things like that, and just was run, climb, wasn't like a lot of hiking mostly, but that's a lot of fun. It snowed on us like hardcore in September. That was a lot of fun. And then the other one that comes to mind is 3, 4, however many years ago, 5, we went to Colorado and we did the 7-day, 120 miles, 6-day, 120 miles and 20,000 feet of gain in Colorado, and just did lots of running, hiking, and we had to be a team, my wife and I. So we had to run at the same time. She had to wait up for me a lot and help me a lot, but it's just a great experience and a great racing experience and everything else. And just those things really, and the last thing I'll say is running with the community here in Dallas has just been a great experience for me. And I believe that community is the key. Keep going, to keep motivating you, to have beers, to just hang out. Doing this podcast is another reason why I do that. I get to meet awesome people like you that are doing some cool things, that just get involved in the running community and do even more by race directing, by doing a lot of stuff. And I didn't know you had a 10-mile streak for 900 and something days, whatever. It's crazy, but it's fun. Like, you haven't got injured, and so it's working for you. So it's pretty cool. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
No, that's great. That's awesome. Probably for me, it's like, there's been so many different runs. Like just recently ran with a bunch of friends. We ran from Dallas to Fort Worth. It was a 35-mile adventure.
That's pretty cool.
Just various races. But I would say, like, the most memorable things really have been my pacing and seeing people who run like their first sub-2 half marathon.
It's fun.
Or just bringing, like, some of the smaller races at 140, bringing in like overall female or something like that in the half. It's just so satisfying to see people hit their goals and just like really enjoying the sport. So yeah, that's what I do. And I would say probably for the future, I don't know what I'm going to run that day, but when I hit the running streak day 1,000 in less than a month from now, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, are you thinking something big, or is like 1K, I'm going to do 30 miles, or maybe you do 100 miles?
I'll probably run 10 or something like that. I think because I was trying to work out the math. I think that's probably like about 5 or 6 days before Tokyo.
Oh, it is. Yeah, you get it.
Actually, I really have to do the math. It may actually be on Cowtown. So Cowtown maybe dates 1,000. It's going to be very close. If it isn't.
What are you running in Cowtown? Is it the half?
I'll be pacing the 2-hour half route at Cowtown.
Okay, I'll be there. I hope to beat that for sure. And it's been great. So thank you for coming, and thanks everyone for tuning in to another DFW Running Talk. Don't forget to rate and review us. And know that we do have a Facebook group of over 10,000 DFW runners called DFW Running Group on Facebook. Just type it in. Again, Andy, thanks for coming. Great story. And I look forward to seeing you again and talking to you again.
Great. Thanks so much, Chris.
Take care.